Ashe County Oral History Project, April 2nd, 1982. An interview with the Nashville Flame discussing his participation in the recovery of the two murdered victims, Lonnie Marshall Gamboa and Tom Eugene Forrester, from the Ore Knob Mine. Interviewer Clarice Weaver. Now, you are known to us as the Nashville Flame because we've read from the papers, and that's usually how they refer to you. Could you give me your full name?
Well, I was born Arnold Smith.
Arnold.
Yeah. Smith. And the Green Acres Pig come along, so I changed mine right quick. And then I adapted the name of Johnny Sands. I traveled music shows for the biggest part of my life as Johnny Sands. And then I later adapted the name the Nashville Flame. I was working under two identities, Johnny Sands as a country music singer, the Nashville Flame for charity. I worked with children with cystic fibrosis, cancer victims, anything that was a life-taking disease. I liked to volunteer time. I wore a mask as the Nashville Flame when I was doing charity work so that the public would not feel that I was capitalizing for the country music aspect of my career.
I wondered about the mask. Where were you born?
I was born in Cherokee, North Carolina.
Oh, really? In Cherokee. You don't want to say how long ago that was. I don't suppose.
I don't mind. 36 years ago.
36 years old. Now, are you married now?
Yes, I am.
And do you have children of your own?
Yes, 5.
5 children. Oh, that's a great family. That's a great family. Where do you live? Where's your home? What do you call home?
Well, right now we're residing in Brevard, North Carolina. I have lived in Nashville for the past 10 years. We're making a temporary living arrangements in Brevard, and I'm on the road most of the time, about 299 days out of the year.
Well, which of your jobs, I guess, it's more than a hobby at this stunt business, which is takes more of your time? You're performing as an artist, music artist, or a stuntman?
Well, I try to keep it devoted equal. I feel like that the charity aspect of my life is what's made my career successful and what has carried me so far. And I love working with charity. So I try to devote just as much time to the charity projects as I do to the music. So together, now that they have unmasked me, so to speak, together, I'm glad that I was unmasked. I didn't like the mask to start with, but I felt that it was a good way to keep the public down. But they thought maybe I was Jesse James behind the mask or something. So now that I've been able to take it off, I have combined the music and the escape shows together. And together I feel like I can do much more than I was able to do before. So together I wouldn't say either one was any more important than the other.
So you've been in country music for a long time, have you?
Yes, 26 years.
26? So I imagine being around the Nashville area, you've met, most of who we see on television as the greats, like Grandpa Jones, Charlie Pride, and all these people.
Yes, I've worked with Charlie Pride. I've worked with Barbara Mandrell, Merle Haggard.
So you're one of the greats then.
Well,
you are one of the greats, I should say.
Well, no, I feel like you got to work. Well, the real thing about the music business is you're only as great as you. I want to say this right, as you work to be. It's not how many records you sell or how good a record maker you are. It's how good a performer and how dedicated you are that makes whatever you are. In other words, what you set an example in your life to be, that's exactly what you are. So I considered myself in the same category with these people because I performed with them. I felt like I put as much into my program as they put into theirs. And it was a real opportunity. I worked with Elvis Presley in a movie, Roustabout, and worked with him again in another movie, Charro, and became good friends. And all of them are my friends. All of them know me. And we look at each other on the same equal basis, and that's an honor, and I'm very proud of
It
achieving.
must be exciting. Just real exciting
Yes, it is.
to associate in that circle of friends. Well, when did you become interested in learning to be an escape artist or be a performer in that field?
Uh, it was somewhere around 77 that I first started the escape business. I was doing a road show. I had a 15-piece band. I had a group known as the Ambassador Quartet, which is a gospel group that was well known. And we were performing the kind of shows that we felt were family shows. I'm not much of a honky-tonk nightclub, and I hate to use that phrase, but that's the only way to illustrate the nightclub end of the circuit, because I like to do a program where children and as well as adults can, and Christians above all, can come and participate and see the program and realize that the program is a family show and clean. So the gospel group traveled with me, and I had a magician that traveled with me, and I was trying to get the magician to hang by his feet from the ceiling and escape from a straitjacket on a rope. And he thought I was a little touched, so he said, I'm not doing it. So I said, well, I think it would be real good to add this to the program, so I said, I'll try it myself. And I had read a lot on Houdini, and had the opportunity to meet some of his family that are still alive, and some of them live in North Carolina. And I got really enthused into the escape end of it. And then I said, well, I'd like to add to charity and do this for charity. So I invented several stunts. I was the first man and the only man in the world to ever hang from a hot air balloon. I did this in North Carolina in 1978 by one ankle. I was 301 feet in the air, and I escaped from leg irons, handcuffs, and a straitjacket, and was attempting for the Guinness Book of World Records. I broke all records, but because I did a balloon and the original record was set on a helicopter, they denied me the record. But I felt like the balloon was more dangerous because a helicopter you have control of, balloon only God and the wind, and God controls both. So I felt like that it was more dangerous and I should have got the record. But I went on and I invented things where I did stunts for state fairs and stuff, and I would hang from my feet on a spinning Ferris wheel, a double Ferris wheel, and escape from log chains and handcuffs and stuff. And then I was the only man to ever ride a motorcycle standing on his head in chains and handcuffs and blindfolded and bring it to a stop without dropping it, getting unchained at the same time.
What a background. What a background in that. Well, now tell me, how did you hear of the Ornob mine and what was going on in Ashe County last December? How did you learn about that?
I was doing a performance in Brevard, North Carolina. We had scheduled a program with the Brevard JCs. And we got snowbound and had to postpone the program. I was watching the news out of Asheville, North Carolina, and they kept coming on the news with the Ashe County situation. I was a little upset with, no offense to the sheriff here, I was a little upset with the federal mine experts in their way of handling this situation. I was measuring myself to the probe. I kept getting so involved over television, I'd have to cut the television off because I'd get mad. I said, I'm as big as the probe, you know. They could send me down, we could get this thing over with, because I'm tired of looking at it like a wrestling match, you know. After you go so far, you wish you'd hurry up then so you can get on with it. But the more I couldn't sleep at night, I got involved. I wanted to be a part. I wanted to help in some way. I said, that's my real thing, is doing charity and helping save lives. And here's where to determine whether lives have been really taken or whatever. And I felt that's in the same line. And so I asked the attorney to contact Sheriff Richard Waddell and asked him would he be interested in using my services at no charge. And immediately the sheriff said that they would take it into consideration, that they had several things in the working, and but they would certainly take it into consideration. And then I had the opportunity to come up and look at the top of the mine as much as I could see from the top end of it. But the more I seen of it, the more I felt confident that we could do something. Like I said, I felt guided from the word start. The song, The Tragedy of the Ash County Mine, to show you how much I felt guided, was written 2 weeks before I ever seen the Oil Knob Mine. Lonnie Gamboa was the first body we found. Lonnie Gamboa is the only person that I wrote in the song. I knew we were going to find Lonnie Gamboa in there. I don't know how I knew, but I knew. And I just believed in the case. But the real things is I believed that after I got here, I felt more confident because, who you've got to work with has a lot to do with the success of it. Sheriff Richard Waddell, I have met law officials all over the country, and I'm not saying this because he's in my presence. I found him to be, the only way to illustrate Sheriff Waddell, and I hope he don't take this offense if I said it once before, he is the only living Andy Griffin in the world. I mean, I find him to be a man that takes consideration of other people's feelings. He thinks before he moves. And not enough law officials in our country use that kind of maneuvering in their life. And Sheriff Richard Waddell, I found to have God in his life, and I think we all need some of that to really let him do the mapping sometime. And I felt that with that kind of man standing beside me to work hand in hand with me, that built my confidence even more. So then I felt that it was a real guidance, and that's what led me to go on and gave me the courage to help me go through with what I did go through.
Well, now did you come up before you made the final decision, or had you pretty much made your mind up before you looked the mine over?
My mind was made up the first day that I looked at the television and seen nothing successful being.
Well, I believe, let's see, we'd had the, what was the name of the outfit down here who had done, was it mine safety and, from Pennsylvania, was that?
Right.
And they missed the bodies, didn't they, when they went down?
Well, I'm just going to say in my own opinion, I don't think that the probe in any way could have reached to where the bodies were laying because of the terrain. I think that the video camera really didn't pick up what they thought they did. But the images that portrayed could have been like the images that came into my head. It could have been I felt this. I got knocked down from a newspaper writer for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway because I felt it. One of these guys died on the night which was Jesus Christ, his birthday. And I believe of all the murders that would take place in the country, that is one thing that Jesus Christ certainly wouldn't appreciate for a birthday, is somebody to lose their life. And I felt like that if he ever wanted anything solved, it would have been this case. And I still feel that way because it's plainly set that example in life.
Well, we were rooting for you all along. We thought, oh, if there's a body in there, we want him to get it out. But now, when you decide, let's get the date as to when. Okay, Joanne wants to ask a question.
Sheriff Waddell, at the time that his attorney called you and spoke to you on the phone about the situation that he was going to come over here and go down in the mine, what was your reaction and what was your feeling? I mean, what did you think at that time of this?
Of course, I didn't know Johnny Sands.
Well, okay.
And I didn't know Scott Peterson, who was the attorney. And I done no checking, and I found out that Johnny was for real, and the things he had done was real. And, of of course, after we pulled the video cameras out, we left the crane out there. We was going back in some way or another somehow, because I knew Gamboa was in there. There's no question. And I had a lot of calls from cave exploring groups and mountain climbers and you name it, you know. But we decided on Johnny after the video crew left, and we definitely wise.
Well, at first, did you feel like that it was just a stunt? I mean, that he was just playing maybe with you on this thing? Maybe he was playing a trick on you, or did you have to call and check on him first before you even started to think toward him?
I naturally checked a little bit. I didn't know Johnny. I checked some. I found out he'd been on PM magazine through some of my reporter friends, and the attorney in Brevard gave him a good name. Of course, the attorney in turn has a good name with the law enforcement community up there, and so everything seemed to be in order, and we decided to use him.
You mentioned PM magazine. Were you on That's Incredible too? And if so, what did you do?
On That's Incredible, they set me on fire. They put me in a straitjacket drenched in gasoline and hung me by my feet and struck a match to me. The object was to escape before things got too hot. I do a lot of stunts involving with fire. That's why I adapted the name Flame. The name Nashville came from that's my heart, that's my soul, that's my life. It's country music. And so the two together, I wanted to be the hottest thing I've been out of Nashville, so I put the two together and I'm burning the trail.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I recall reading in the paper where this Mine Safety and Health from Pittsburgh had the video thing down in to explore and check around, and I felt real sad when they didn't find something. And then one of the papers reported that they would just let Gamboa rest in peace, and I thought, well, if he's down there, perhaps that's a good thing for everybody to think, because maybe somebody could go pitch a grenade or something down in, and there it would fill in till you couldn't find him. And I thought, well, I'll bet that's what Sheriff Waddell's thinking about. He wants to keep people from doing a thing like that if the man being down there.
See, it took us several days to get the equipment we needed for Johnny to go down there. The tanks and the gas meters and all this roping and generators and just umpteen things. It took several days to do that. In the meantime, we want to keep them guessing.
Well, I wondered if that wasn't the ploy that was being used. Did you have to keep a law enforcement man out there through the whole thing? Well, it's a terribly cold time, wasn't it, through part of it?
Put our loans up. Camper. We heated with cash and kept fairly coming. Blue Ridge pulled some power for us and they put us a phone in out there.
So it's made as comfortable as could be, wasn't it? Well, describe the mine. Okay, let's back up and just say, describe the effort and preparation you made. Apparently you are a very religious person. Am I reading this
Well,
right?
in the 1 year, this was a big change in my life too. That I don't like to. I think if we're going to put this in history, it ought to be put down right. Now, in my past, growing up as a young guy, I wasn't never what you'd say a hardened criminal or anything, but I've had my little run-ins with the law officials. I used to drink a little bit, and with the Indian blood in me, white lightning don't mix with red skin.
Which you don't have. But yeah okay.
And I was about, I'm 5'6", but when I take a couple drinks, I was about 7'4". And no, I had
that
a
may
bad
be
temper.
Universal feeling. I don't know.
I don't know why little guys get mean, but no, I had a bad temper, and I never would face the fact that I could not handle the drinking part of my life. A year ago, on Christmas, which, I mean, I had did a lot of good things since then of changing my life as far as on the just cause. But a year ago, I dedicated my life to Jesus Christ, and I said that I would like to do something very special for Jesus Christ on his birthday, myself, and this was on the birthday too. I said that I would like to say that I would never take another drink, never take any kind of pills or use drugs, and set an example in my life, regardless if it was an example that I could set for one person or only myself, as long as it would be used or be remembered as I tried to do right. And I've tried to live to that. I felt like that to be a good entertainer, you've got to be a good person. And I see so much in the entertainment business today of entertainers that portray themselves with a liquor bottle in the hand, and they call this an example to set to the young people. I think if we're going to be an example to the young people, we need to stand on that stage and be what we pretend to be. If people are good enough to buy your records and make a star out of you, and I think it's up to the people. I think you should be, as Sheriff Waddell is as a sheriff, try to give those people what they expect from you and try to do it in the best way. And so I'm trying to do that. I would not have gone in a hole if I wasn't living that kind of life. A stunt I can perform because I practice and work it out a little at a time, and I know exactly what's going on. This was no way to work out. It was a situation that it had to be guidance from somebody, and I just felt like God was a good one. They say if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. I said I don't want to move one; just want to crawl around inside.
Go around it. Now let's describe the mine there a bit. As I understand it, this was not the one that the Nipissing Mining Company mined from, was it? Was this the old
shaft?
Shaft.
This was not really a mine. This was actually just a shaft. At one time, they had mines from a different location into this. Am I correct, sir? From what I have been, my father-in-law is a federal mine. Worked for the coal mines in West Virginia. He was a foreman for 45 years. What he explained to me, that this was a shaft that actually these drifts that come off from the sides were where the actual mining was taking place. This was only a shaft to bring air into the mine.
I see.
Now what happened with this mine, this hole here was the original hole that they dug for an air shaft. This was hand dug, and later on they tapped other shafts into it. But what happened, they left this was crisscross beamed, which was, you don't even see anymore. The beams in a mine, to hold it up, are braced around the walls and down the walls in a square shape. These were X beams running across the ceiling here. So this had not been reworked, in my personal opinion. Now, what they did is they came over later and dug in from the other side of the mountain and run through the mountain until they hit this shaft. When they hit this shaft, they reinforced their shaft from there back. But as far as this part, it looked like they only set a fan up maybe here at where they opened the connections in, and used it to ventilate air into the shafts that they were working in below. So I would say that this was not a working shaft itself. It was only an air shaft.
An air shaft. How deep down is that first tunnel from the mouth of the mine, or some shaft?
The first one is about 70 feet down.
The one you're speaking of now with the crisscross, is that the one that we're talking about?
No. The one at about 220 feet down, or 210, is the one that has the crisscross beams.
That's difficult for me to imagine, being underground 200 and some feet. Now, was this your first trip down in a mine?
Yes.
I think the question I'd like to ask, what was your preparation, and then I ask about your religious aspect of it. What was your preparation? What kind of gear did you wear, protective clothing or what else?
I used a skin diver's wetsuit because I thought that I might get involved with water. Because of the shaft being left open. I wore a Scott air packed, which is used by your fire departments as a breathing apparatus, and a positive pressure face mask. So in the event of any gases, explosive gases, or endangered gases or foul air, that I would not get any of this in me, because according to the people that I had talked to, it only takes about 2 breaths of this deadly gas, and then they would have had another one down. So we used I used a tree saddle, which many years ago, other than being a singer every now and then you have to go to work, I was a tree expert, and I had knowledge with working ropes and tree harnesses, and I thought that the tree harness would be a good way to be able to set and use it comfortably and safely. And the sheriff and all of them got together and made sure that the right equipment was available. It took a few days to get it together because we had to have so many things. And we also took a special gas meter that would tell you the oxygen supply, if any, or how much gas, or if there's any foul areas to run into.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you started down, now you said you were confident, and you'd written a song about Gamboa, and you were confident you were going to find someone. What was your feelings as you were going down? Was it at all like you had pictured in your mind?
Well, yes, it was, and no. Yes, it looked the way that I was picturing it to look. But as going down, things, I don't know, your mind plays tricks on you. I could see where Paul on the road to Damascus thought things was really being strange. It's like, we lose faith. Even I was, I was slack on faith as I went down the first time. I panicked a little bit. I wanted to see daylight again. I didn't want to die. Then I had to talk it over with myself again, and the thing was that I said, if this is my time, this is a good way to go, and I'd rather go trying to do something on the just cause. And the more that I tried to convince myself, the easier it got, which the fear never left my mind. Even once I walked in, and it took me, I think, 4 trips down before I actually walked on the bottom. And I was only down briefly because I touched the bottom, and automatically when I set my feet down on the ground, the hose that I was using on the gas detector accidentally stuck into the mud in the ground, so it went off. And so it was indicating that there's no oxygen, and this thing was going crazy, and I thought maybe, there's gases, everything. Mm-hmm. So again, there I was in a bad situation.
How deep was that?
This was at about 200, well, I was on top of the cone, so this was actually about 215 feet down.
You spoke of the mouth of the mine being, the shaft being wide, and then it coned down to a narrow space. How narrow did it get?
In some places, most of the time it stayed around 10 feet in diameter as it closed in. Some of the places it would close into about 7.5 feet in diameter. Was
it pretty busy down there, the earth movements and that sort of thing?
It was
spooky, you might say?
Yes, very strange. It would sound like you would shoot a 38 pistol would go off in the bottom, and then it would crack from one end, and you'd hear it travel through. And then there was a lot of debris in one of the openings that went back through the mountain. Would constantly fall in wood debris and timber. And I don't know if it was from ice melting, water melting underground causing this to happen, but yes, it was a very, very strange sound, and very weird.
Kind of eerie, wasn't it?
Yes.
How long, or do you think, well, let me think about this question. Do you think that in a time that the dirt would have blown over these men if you hadn't have gone? Could that have happened?
Yes, both bodies were partially Tommy Foster's body was completely covered except for one leg sticking up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And Lonnie Gamboa was partially covered. His feet had been completely covered up from his knees down. His back was partially covered, and rock and debris had done almost covered him up. If we had waited 2 more weeks, it would have been hard to find him.
Now, there was some speculation that Paul Bear was to have said, or it was reported in the newspaper that he was to have said that made the 22nd or body or something. Did you see any sign of any of